Negligence. Introduction. Negligence is one of the most important concepts under the law of torts. It deals with harm caused due to carelessness rather than intention. A person is held liable when he fails to take reasonable care, which a prudent person would have taken in similar circumstances. The law of negligence aims to protect individuals from unreasonable risks and ensure accountability. Negligence is widely applied in cases involving accidents, medical services, road mishaps, and professional duties. Meaning of negligence. Negligence means the breach of a legal duty to take care, resulting in damage to another person. It refers to a careless act or omission that a reasonable person would not have done. The concept focuses on conduct rather than intention. Even without intention to cause harm, liability may arise if reasonable care is not exercised. Thus, negligence is carelessness recognized by law as a civil wrong. Essential elements of negligence. To successfully prove negligence, the plaintiff must establish certain essential elements. These elements ensure that liability is imposed only where it is fair and justified. The absence of any one element defeats the claim. The law carefully examines the conduct of the defendant and the harm suffered by the plaintiff. The three essential elements are duty of care, breach of duty, and damage. Duty of care. A duty of care refers to a legal obligation imposed on a person to act carefully towards others who may be affected by his actions. The concept ensures that individuals do not act in a way that foreseeably causes harm to others. The duty arises where there is a relationship of proximity between the parties. It is not a moral duty but a legal one recognized by courts. Whether a duty exists depends on foreseeability of harm and closeness of relationship. Case law, Donahue v. Stevenson, 1932. Facts: the plaintiff consumed ginger beer bought by her friend. The bottle contained a dead snail, which caused the plaintiff to suffer serious illness. There was no direct contract between the plaintiff and the manufacturer. The manufacturer argued absence of duty. Held: the House of Lords held that the manufacturer owed a duty of care to the ultimate consumer. The neighbor principle was established, requiring reasonable care to avoid foreseeable harm. Breach of duty. Breach of duty occurs when a person fails to meet the standard of care expected from a reasonable person under similar circumstances. The court compares the defendant's conduct with that of a prudent and cautious person. If the defendant falls below this standard, a breach is established. The test is objective and does not consider personal capacity. Breach depends on factors like risk, likelihood of harm, and practicability of precautions. Case law, Blythe v. Birmingham Waterworks Co., 1856. Facts: due to extremely severe frost, water pipes burst and flooded the plaintiff's house. The waterworks company had taken normal and reasonable precautions as per usual standards. The frost was extraordinary and unforeseen. Held: the court held that there was no breach of duty. The defendant acted reasonably and could not be expected to guard against such an exceptional event. Damage or injury. Damage is an essential requirement for negligence. Even if there is a duty and breach, liability arises only when the plaintiff suffers actual damage. The damage may be physical, financial, or mental, but it must be legally recognizable. Mere risk of damage is insufficient. The law does not compensate trivial or speculative harm. The injury must be real and substantial. Case law, Roe v. Minister of Health, 1954. Facts: the plaintiff became paralyzed after spinal injections administered using glass ampoules that developed invisible cracks. At the time, such risk was unknown to medical science. The doctors followed accepted practice. Held: the court held that there was no negligence because the injury was not foreseeable at that time. Damage alone without foreseeability was not enough. Causation in negligence. Causation establishes a direct link between the breach of duty and the damage suffered. The plaintiff must prove that the damage would not have occurred but for the defendant's negligence. If the damage would have occurred anyway, liability does not arise. Courts also consider whether the damage is too remote. Only damage closely connected to the breach is compensable. Case law, Barnett v. Chelsea and Kensington Hospital, 1969. Facts: a patient suffering from arsenic poisoning was negligently sent away from the hospital without treatment. He later died. Medical evidence showed that he would have died even if treatment had been given. The court held that negligence did not cause the death. Since causation was not proved, the hospital was not liable. Standard of care. The standard of care refers to the level of caution and attention expected from a reasonable person. It varies according to the circumstances, profession, and situation involved. Professionals are judged by standards of their own field. The law does not expect the highest degree of skill, but reasonable competence. This ensures fairness and avoids unrealistic expectations. Case law, Bolam v. Friern Hospital Management Committee, 1957. Facts: the plaintiff suffered fractures during electroconvulsive therapy due to absence of muscle relaxants. The doctor followed a method supported by a responsible body of medical opinion. The court held that a professional is not negligent if he acts in accordance with a practice accepted by a responsible body of professionals. This principle is known as the Bolam test. Contributory negligence. Contributory negligence arises when the plaintiff himself contributes to the harm suffered. It does not completely defeat the claim but reduces compensation. The law examines the conduct of both parties. Liability is apportioned according to fault. This principle promotes fairness by discouraging careless behavior by plaintiffs. Case law, Davies v. Mann, 1842. Facts: the plaintiff left his donkey tied on a public road. The defendant drove negligently and killed the donkey. Both parties were negligent. The court held the defendant liable as he had the last opportunity to avoid the accident. This case introduced the last opportunity rule. Conclusion: negligence plays a vital role in the law of torts by enforcing a duty of reasonable care. It balances individual freedom with social responsibility. By requiring proof of duty, breach, damage and causation, the law ensures just compensation. Negligence remains one of the most examined and practically significant topics for LLB students.